You guys don't have to do anything, but just be prepared that when you walk into class, the tale of the disappearing Louisa. Gone. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to have like an in-class activity to start off to get your brains going, get you warmed up, but it's going to be about following a bolus of food, so you might want to be prepared because I am going to call on every single one of you. Okay, and I'm not only going to just call on you, I'm going to do this. Come on, waiting, waiting, okay? Just so you get that warm, fuzzy feeling in your face. You know the one where you don't know the answer, yet you're still being asked the answer? Great. So swallowing, what's this doing for us? It's actually taking us through buccal, it's talking about mouth, okay? Pharyngeal, as we start to move down, tongue rises, so we're starting to swallow. This would technically be considered the upper esophageal sphincter, technically, okay? And then boom, notice their peristalsis in the esophagus, which is just posterior to the trachea. That sounds familiar. Maybe I'll put a labeling diagram of the trachea on the test. All right, and then kerpow. It says bolus enters the stomach. Notice it says lower esophageal sphincter, also known as the EG junction. EG junction. So if you guys hear that, just be prepared. All it's saying is esophagus gastric junction. That's all it is. Okay, that guy right there, unbelievably, the pressure of the food will cause it to dilate, but sometimes it doesn't. That's called stricture. Stricture, and so what you'll do is you'll drink some what? Milk or water or something, and what happens to your food when you do? Oh, that feels much better. Okay? So, walking you through, notice it's at the soft palate, just behind the tongue. There's your epiglottis. Your epiglottis, what's it going to do? Protect your airway. Yeah. So, boom, notice where the epiglottis is now. Over the airway, there's your bolus of food. Your bolus of food pushes down, keeps moving down through peristalsis, and then kerpow into the stomach. Okay? Now, you can, if you've heard this before, it's a true statement, you can shrink your stomach. Okay? The less you eat, the smaller it gets. But we have these wonderful things called cravings, right? Pregnant or not, they're there. Okay? And you're like, must have macaroni and cheese. And you eat. So your stomach is, the size of your stomach is dictated by how much you eat. Major functions of the stomach, well, storage of ingested food, mechanical breakdown, disruption of chemical bonds. Disruption of chemical bonds. Well, guess what? Acid and enzymes. Straight up, that's going to break anything down. Okay, production of intrinsic factor needed. Okay, a glycoprotein required for the absorption of vitamin B12 in the small intestines. What is vitamin B12 directly related to? Yeah. Oh, yeah, blood. She said iron, but she's totally correct. Yeah, blood. Yeah. You guys remember that from the blood chapter? No, I didn't think so. That's okay. I understand. It's getting to the end. Yeah. You guys got one foot out the door already. You're like, final. Okay. Did you know the school actually lets the instructor decide whether or not you get a final?
Yeah.
No, you guys need the final. You need it. Okay, anatomy of the stomach. Well, we're going to zip right over this, but for the most part, it has a lesser curvature, medial surface, greater curvature, lateral surface. Well, that tells you medial surface, right here, lateral surface. Okay, anterior and posterior surface, and shape and size vary from individual to individual and from meal to the next, which is what I was just saying. The amount of food you eat dictates your stomach, just as much as that. Okay, so it's no surprise that if you eat a really big meal and then you go like half a day or maybe even one day without eating, your stomach's growling at you continuously. Okay, and it's not because you're hungry, it's actually because it's changing shape. Go figure. Now, you are going to send signals saying you're hungry. Okay? So stomach typically extends between levels of vertebrae T7 and L3. We don't really need to know that. I mean, it's good if you really want positioning of it, but think about where it is. Okay, it's midline. It does have a greater and lesser curvature, and just below the diaphragm. Now, unbelievably, isn't the diaphragm like what is that called? Like an accessory muscle or something like that for breathing? Same with those intercostal muscles. Yeah. I read it somewhere. I can't remember where, but I did read it. Okay, so regions of the stomach. You do need to know these, so please make sure you note them. There is a diagram in the online for you guys of the stomach. It has all this on there. Cardia. Wow, sounds like what? Heart. Yes, the part of the stomach by the heart. Fundus. That's where all the fun happens. Okay. The body of, and then the pylorus. The pylorus is probably one of the most important aspects of the stomach because just after the pylorus is the pyloric sphincter. And that one, unbelievably, is the sphincter that regulates how much food goes into the small intestines. How much food actually drops into the small intestines. So notice lesser curvature. There you go. Greater curvature, the whole thing. There's the body. Okay, cardia, this is right up by the heart, just below the heart. Okay, the fundus is this upper ridge right here. And unbelievably, and I'll tell you guys a little secret, I've actually been in treatment rooms where we're doing an upper scope, okay? And so an EGD, we're actually dropping the scope in, and they're supposed to do this thing called a retroflex. And unbelievably, we all get stressed. Yeah. We all try to hurry things up, okay? And the great thing about the technicians and the nurses that work with doctors, we're there to say, hey, slow down. Because, unbelievably, I had a physician come in. I had only worked with him a couple times. He stuck the scope in. The scope dropped down like this. He came over here. He popped through the pyloric sphincter, which is right there, into the duodenum, looked around in the duodenum, came back into the stomach, looked around a little bit more, and then started to pull it out. And I said, are we not going to check the fundus? And he's like, what? And I'm like, well, the fundus. And he's like, oh, I thought I just did. I said, no, you didn't retroflex yet. He's like, well, thank you. Retroflex, guess what we found? An ulcer. So, do doctors get in rushes? Yeah. Are they stressed? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Same with the nurses. Okay? But just keep in mind that collectively as a team, you really make it work. Okay? And it's not about calling someone out. It's actually working as a team. And sometimes you guys have already seen this. Sometimes people mistake me for gruff. I had nothing against the doc. I actually liked him. But he was going too fast. And he needed to retroflex. And we did. We found it. And unbelievably, I was a little bit ahead of the game because I read the patient's chart. And the patient was commenting on gastric pain, discomfort. Okay, especially when he ate a meal. Why do you think, and this is good for you guys to know because this is real world situations. Why do you think he was in pain or had discomfort when he ate a meal? The stomach's moving around. There's one. Okay, how about this? Let me walk over here and I'll show you something. Let's check this out. So when he ate a meal, the meal came down. Here's his esophagus. It drops through. This is your EG junction. It drops in and starts filling up this area. And your body will actually churn. Okay, the stomach will churn like this, start moving it around. But then he wasn't a person that ate small meals. It's not like he had 3 carrots and he was happy. He ate larger meals. So it keeps churning and keeps churning and keeps churning. And his ulcer was right here. So what is found in the stomach? Acid, HCl. So when it was churning, the HCl and the food, the acidic chyme was rubbing against the ulcer, causing pain and discomfort. Okay? And so, if you start just thinking simplistically, even something as simple as that, you're actually thinking about it churning, it's actually rubbing against that ulcer. Okay? And it's a breakdown. An ulcer is basically the breakdown of the layers of the tissue to where an immune response occurs. And so you have exposed cells, you have exposed tissue, and when the acid hits it, it burns, it hurts. And not like heartburn. We're talking like someone sticking a hot needle in you. Burn. Okay, so it was nice to actually do that, and when I was finished, the physician pulled me aside and said, thanks for the catch. That was awesome, thank you. Because it looked good on him too. He got to write it up on the chart that we found the ulcer. Okay? A little bit clearer, obviously this is a cartoon version of it, but it still works for us, doesn't it? Okay, notice our lesser curvature right here, it's a medial surface, our greater curvature right here. Okay? Body, oblique muscles, well, guess what? Rhythmic movement through the stomach. We've got to churn this. The cardia up above, again, it's named after the area because it's just below the heart. And then we come over here, super important sphincter, because this guy right here is the one that opens and closes to let about 3 milliliters of food through at a time. Now, I don't have a jar in here, but usually I have one floating around. Maybe I'll find one for tomorrow. Oh yeah, here we go. Awesome. Okay, so the bottom line here, at the bottom of this little tiny jar that you guys see, that's 20 milliliters. That lets 3 milliliters through at a time. Just a super small amount. Because if it lets any more than that in, it's actually going to hurt the duodenum because it can't take the acidity. Remember, the stomach's acidic, but the duodenum's not. So yeah, just small amounts, little 3 milliliter bursts of food. Smooth, well, go ahead, sorry.
So if you eat a lot of that, okay.
Yeah, so actually if you eat a lot, it actually can cause problems. If you eat a lot of food, it can put a lot of pressure against the what'd you run? Goofball. Okay, so if you eat a lot of food, it actually puts a lot of pressure against that sphincter. Okay, and if you put too much pressure against that sphincter, your body will say, no joy, I can't do it anymore, and kick the food out. It's called dumping. It'll say just vomit right now. And sure enough, you will. You'll get rid of it all. Okay, and if you're like me, I hate vomiting because of the way my teeth feel afterwards, but it'll feel pretty good because there's nothing in there. I'm like, ooh, feel a little light. Yeah. But I hate vomiting because of the fact that it really does chew up my teeth. I hate that feeling, that chalky feeling. You guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, dumping occurs, and it's pretty common, especially for people that overeat. Go ahead.
The esophagus lining, is that close to the fundus?
Yes, the esophagus lining meets up with the EG junction, and then we change, unbelievably, the cells change from the esophagus to the stomach. Okay, and Barrett's disease can occur, which is where the cells from the stomach migrate up into the esophagus to protect you from acid reflux. Who would have thought it, huh? Pretty crazy. So we are surrounded by muscles, and because we have multiple layers of muscles, it's so that we can actually churn in a certain direction. Histology, well, this is important because we have to understand what it is, but right off the bat, simple columnar, peeps, right? Simple columnar, boom. We're talking about the ability to absorb certain things. We're also going to have cells that secrete mucus. That mucus is going to line the stomach and protect us against our own acid. Gastric pits, shallow depressions that open onto the gastric surface. Mucus cells at the base or neck of each gastric pit actively divide, replacing superficial cells. Think about how hostile, and I like using that word, hostile your stomach is. Right? How many people have actually been out and having a good time and you're eating and all of a sudden, and just how, does it burn? Yeah, it burns. I mean, you got to think about it. That's a pH of 2. A pH of 2 in your esophagus. It's no wonder they call it heartburn. Okay, but keep in mind that it's not your heart that's burning, it's your esophagus that's burning. It's just a relative term. Okay, so you need to know these cells, parietal and chief cells, and what they secrete. Tomorrow I'll ask questions about them. Okay, please note the parietal and chief cells. What do they secrete? Okay, so a closer look of this. Notice our cells. And you guys actually saw this in 241. Doesn't matter which instructor you had. You guys, I know you saw it because the slides we used are all the same. And it's of digestive tract cells with mucus cells. Okay? So gastric pit opening to glandular to the glands, mucus epithelium, lamina propria down at the bottom there. We do have the different muscles to help with the churning. But if you take a close peek, and I apologize for the size of this, I'm sure they're going to blow it up for us. Look at all these cells. See all these cells around here? Every single one of those cells has a function. Has a function. It's going to secrete stuff or it's going to help protect us. Now a closer look, okay, we have our parietal cells, our G cells, and our chief cells. Okay, everything else can be pretty much, notice this is the neck. All of these mucus cells, what do you think they're secreting? Well, we already know it. Mucus. What was the other word that I used? There was a over-the-counter thing you could buy. Mucin. Mucin. And actually mucin reacts with something else to become mucus. All right, so what do these cells do? Well, let's start breaking them down. Okay, we already have one cell. What was enteroendocrine cell, right? Didn't we have that cell? We certainly did. So here we go. Parietal cells secrete intrinsic factor and hydrochloric acid, HCl. Okay? Now, chief cells are the most abundant near the base of the gastric gland, secrete pepsinogen, and pepsinogen is a proenzyme. That means it needs something. All right? It needs something to become pepsin. It's a proenzyme. It needs something to become pepsin. So let's see how awake we are now. Let's back up. Parietal and chief cells. Parietal and chief cells. What do chief cells secrete? Pepsinogen. What do parietal cells secrete? Hydrochloric acid. So what do you think pepsinogen needs to become pepsin? Hydrochloric acid. How crazy is that? The cells are right beside each other, and in the presence of hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen converts from pepsinogen generating to pepsin. In the presence of it. How wickedly cool is that? Now, did you know that you send signals from your brain to your stomach that in the presence of food, you start secreting acid? So it is not good. It's not good to tease yourself with food. Did you guys know that? It sounds crazy, but it's not good for you because in the presence of food, let's say that let's say you go to a bakery. Back to the bakery. Okay? Who were the people that bought all those donuts and the other stuff? Someone said, it was Mai. Mai, you guys know who Mai is in our class? Mai? Yeah, after I tortured you guys with the whole bread thing, she went and bought like a big giant thing of like donuts and other stuff. It was awesome. She's like, after I've been tortured by Mr. Benson, I had to have donuts, and she bought a bunch of them. Pretty hilarious. Okay, so if you're in the presence of food and you start getting yourself all worked up for food, but you don't eat, now you have excessive stomach acid floating around. Because preparing you to eat, your body says start secreting stomach acid. Okay? Crazy to think about. Crazy.
So what about someone who's like anorexic, who like eats food like just
yeah, they've got a lot of problems going on, especially stomach acid, because they're burning their esophagus, they're burning the enamel off their teeth, because most people that are anorexic are also bulimic. You know, there's a big percentage of them. Well, I don't want to categorize them, but there's a percentage there that they force themselves to.
a lot of stomach acid.
Yep, tons.
So are they in pain then?
Yeah, but they'll forego the pain to look skinny. Okay?
You know the acid that flows back?
Yep.
What happens if that happens
All the time?
All the time.
Barrett's disease. And basically what happens is your body tries to protect you from it by having the cells in your stomach migrate up to your esophagus. We have a special light on the end of our scopes, and so when we send it down, we turn the light on just before we go through the EG junction. If all the cells stay one color, you're good to go. But if they turn purple, that means that they're stomach cells migrating. And that's how we can tell. And so what are we going to prescribe? Well, first we're going to try to control your diet. We'd rather not give you drugs. And then second off, probably some type of medication. The last thing we want you to do is go overboard on Tums. Not good for you. Okay? So, parietal cells and chief cells, they need each other. They need each other, and you need to know what they secrete, clearly. Okay, so here you go. In the presence of, this is the goodies right here. Carbonic anhydrase, Where have I heard that before? Carbonic anhydrase. Oh, the lungs. What? I know. I said I wasn't a chemist, and I'm not. I hate chemistry. I really do. Me and chemistry don't get along. But it's everywhere. Okay? Yeah, I mean, I walk in the door, I see my wife, and there's some chemistry. I'm just like, yeah, spring's over, but my heart still flutters. It really does. Okay? Yeah. But in this case, we're talking about hydrogen. Hydrogen, an increase in hydrogen is or decrease in pH, increase in acidity. Okay? Carbonic acid. Okay, so notice here, hydrogen ions are generated inside the parietal cells as the enzyme carbonic anhydrase converts CO2 and H2O to carbonic acid, H2CO3, which then disassociates, so H2CO3 disassociates to HCO3. Okay, notice it comes back, it's an alkaline tide, and it enters into the bloodstream. Don't we need that to regulate hydrogen and CO2 in the bloodstream? Wrong. We certainly do. So that's directly linked to our stomach. And you guys thought I was just beating you up on purpose with all those chemistry. Yeah, it's silliness. But there it is. Okay, so production of hydrochloric acid. Pepsinogen is converted by HCl, okay, to pepsin. Sorry. Okay? And pepsin has a job. It does. It certainly does. Okay? Pyloric glands located in the pylorus produce mucus secretions scattered with enteroendocrine. Okay? G cells produce gastrin. There's another chemical you need to know, so write it down. D cells release somatostatin, a hormone that inhibits the release of gastrin. Now, right now, this is probably a confusing time for you, but how much did I say moved from the stomach into the duodenum? 3 milliliters. Okay? And remember, it's very, very acidic. In fact, we call it acidic chyme. It's very acidic. So think about this. Let me just see how my stomach drawing skills are here, because we'll get to skip a bunch of slides here in a moment. Okay? So here we go. Okay? So now watch what happens. So food comes in. And actually they changed the name to chyme. Okay? They changed the name to chyme. C-H-Y-M-E. Chyme. They changed it to chyme. And we call it acidic chyme because what's in there? Hydrochloric acid. Okay, so HCl. Right? So now it's acidic chyme. Now watch what's going to happen. This is going to keep doing this. It's going to keep churning in that direction. But 3 milliliter spurts are going to do this. And because it's still acidic, we need to neutralize the acid right here. So let's go back to what it's saying here. It says scattered enteroendocrine cells, G cells produce gastrin, which you need to know what it is, and we're going to figure it out here in a second. But then it says D cells release somatostatin, a hormone that inhibits the release of gastrin. So don't we need to stop this when there's some already in here? So if there's 3 ml present right here, we stop this. It'll keep churning, but we won't empty anymore. We have to stop it so that we can neutralize that. The second it's neutralized and there's no more acid, it starts moving and we dump another 3. Again, and then dump again. So literally what we're doing is this. Pour some in, stop, neutralize. Pour some in, stop, neutralize. Now when we stop, your stomach's still churning. We're just not dumping any more in. So pour some in, stop, neutralize. And your stomach's doing that until it processes the food, which could take between 2 and 8 hours depending on what you ate. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
There we go. So again, it depends on what you ate, how much you ate, and what you ate. Trust me, in November, this process goes on for hours. Because what happens in November? That's right. You wake up in the morning and you're going, and from the start of the day to the end of the day, when you're slightly in a coma, what are you doing? Eating. It's an olive here, a piece of candy there, celery here. You've got to sample everything, right? Especially if your mom's one of those cooks that gets up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, starts really kicking it in gear, makes a whole bunch of pre-goodies for everybody to eat, and then makes the dinner. Because that's me right there. I make tons of pre-goodies. I'm all about the cheese plates and the olives, the different types of olives, and the little sample. Have you guys ever done this? The stuffing balls? You take stuffing and you put an olive on top, and you can sprinkle some cheese on there, heat them up, and then set them out. So it's like a pre-yumminess. You got a little stuffing ball with an olive and cheese on it. You just take stuffing and you roll it into a ball.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happens to your stomach if, let's say, you were not eating the whole day, and then when it was time for you to eat, you ate like
A huge meal?
Yeah.
a huge meal?
Well, first off, your stomach says, thank you. Okay, then second off, you start feeling distension, pain.
Yeah.
Because bam, your stomach during the day has started to shrink up a little bit, and then you're loading it up. Yeah, you can feel a little bit of distension, a little bit of uncomfortableness. Best thing for you to do is walk. Don't sit down, don't lie down, don't go to bed. Chances are you might get up and throw up.
How long does it take for your stomach to shrink, to actually shrink, like if somebody's trying to lose weight or whatever?
Well, shrink, it takes a period of time up to a week, depending on who you are, how much you've eaten before in the past. You can have that hollow feeling in one day. Yeah, so it doesn't mean it's shrunk, but you just have that hollow feeling. Okay, so regulation of gastric activity. You do need to know this, please. 3 phases of gastric control: cephalic, okay, gastric, and intestinal. So brain, stomach, and intestines. Brain, stomach, and intestines. You do need to know this. So here we go. So central nervous system, sight, smell, taste, and thoughts of food. And look at the things they put up there. Cheeseburger.
Wow.
A slice of cake, really, how can you refuse? And a chicken leg. Yeah, I'm all about the chicken leg. Give me like 6 or 7 of those on the bone. Yes, please. Loving the chicken leg. Okay, but the sight, smell, and taste of food kicks the central nervous system in through the vagus nerve, submucosal plexus. Mucus cells, chief cells, and parietal cells begin producing mucus, pepsinogen, and hydrochloric acid just by the thought, presence, smell, and taste of food. Oh yeah. Okay, and notice it says their arrows here. The red arrows are stimulation. Okay, so boom, we're stimulating cephalic phase. Let's pop into the next one. Woohoo! This is where it gets really fun. Submucosal and myenteric plexus. So mixing waves. So now we're starting to churn it. Okay? Yeah, you're starting to churn it. Then it says stretch receptors and chemoreceptors. So as pH, okay, as pH changes or stretch, distension, we can actually send signals in to stop the production of certain chemicals. So as you eat and you stretch, your body says, okay, enough, and will send signals to stop that process. Now the churning is going to still occur because we have to keep mixing it, and we have to dump about 3 milliliters in. So that's the neural response. Okay, neural response. Now this is huge because this is carried, some's carried in the bloodstream. So peristalsis is kicking in, rhythmic movement. Okay, duodenal stretch and chemoreceptors. So once the duodenum senses that there's a chemical there that's not supposed to be there, it's going to secrete its own hormones to start processing the food. But notice the last one, secretin. That one's going to help decrease, okay, decreased pH. So it says it's an inhibition. So we can slow down peristalsis, we can stop the production of pepsinogen and hydrochloric acid. We can basically say, you know what, everything can just go ahead and stop for right now. Let's process what we have in our tummies. Okay? Now remember, it says in the presence of lipids and carbohydrates. We're going to secrete this stuff to start processing the food. We're also going to secrete bile and a whole bunch of stuff from the pancreas. So intestinal phase. And this is how we process it. This is what's so wickedly cool about our stomach. It's literally dump some in, stop, keep churning, dump some in, stop, keep churning. And the presence of it, so the presence of HCl, the distension of your stomach says, okay, stop eating. Okay? Unfortunately, it takes a few minutes, so guess what? When your friend sat the 2 hot dogs in front of you and you said, I only need 1, you start eating it and realize how good and tasty it is. Okay, for those people that don't like byproducts or pork, guess what? It's a beef hot dog. It's a beef hot dog, and it's pure, yeah, beef hot dog, and it's a frank, like big frank, okay? Yeah, in a bun, bread, yum. And if you're like, no, I can't do it, it's a kielbasa. Yeah, yumminess with some apple and bacon in it. Okay? Yeah. Okay? Okay, but then you eat it and you're like, oh, I guess I was really hungry. So what do you do with the second one? You start eating it, and then you realize, oh, I'm really full. Okay? And if you're me, you're like, but I can't let it go to waste. And so I eat all of the second one, and I'm laying there going, kielbasa, it's killing me. Yeah. Did all this occur? Yes, it did. It stopped the production of acid, it stopped most of this from occurring, but unfortunately Phil's a glutton, and he kept going.
Okay. What if you're like, some people like don't stop eating like every hour?
Oh.
How that's gonna?
Well, if your body, at small amounts, it's not going to affect you at all because you'll process it quickly. Large amounts, on the other hand, your body says, wow, let's just store it somewhere. Blam!
Oh.
Yep, that's right. That's where it goes, right to the buttocks. Right to the seat cushion. All right, so stomach, digestion, and absorption. What? Okay, stomach performs preliminary digestion of proteins by pepsin. So what does pepsin take care of? Protein. Okay, you guys are thinking gastrin and pepsinogen. No. Pepsinogen comes first, then there's HCl, so in the presence of it, we become pepsin. Once we become pepsin, what are we working with? Proteins. Proteins. And that's pretty easy, right? Pep, yeah, that works. Okay, how about this? Some digestion of carbohydrates, salivary amylase. Hello. What does salivary amylase break down? Starch and carbohydrates. There you go. How about linguinal lipase? What does it start to break down? Fat. Okay, so are you guys getting a hint on how this works out? Each one of these chemicals starts a process. Now, it's not full-on digestion, but it's starting the process. Breaking down, tearing it apart, neutralizing it, helping us with the process. So it's no surprise that when you start thinking about bread, starches, and carbohydrates, what do? You salivate right up. Yeah. What if I did this? Okay, instead of the hot dog, I just said you got the bun. And I know most of you are like, the bun? Yeah, the bun. You just got the bun. But you throw some cheese on the bun, whatever you want, mix it up on the bun, heat it up in the oven and eat it. Oh, yeah, starch, yum. Carbohydrates, yum. Eat that. Yeah, nothing like just a hot dog bun. You tell a kid it's the greatest thing, it'll help them grow, they'll eat hot dog buns. They don't even need the hot dog. Okay, kids are awesome like that. Digestion and absorption in the stomach. Now here's the big one. It does become more fluid, and that's where we change the name to chyme. It does become acidic, so there's the acidic chyme, a pH of approximately 2. Pepsin activity increases. Protein disassembly begins. So we're starting to break the protein down. Now we're not digesting it, we're just breaking it down. Protein. Although digestion occurs in the stomach, nutrients are not absorbed there. Okay, so we start breaking it down. Okay, small intestine plays a key role in digestion and absorption. 90% of nutrients absorption occurs in the small intestine. Let's say that one more time. 90% of nutrition absorption occurs in the small intestines. So we're going to have a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, 90% here.
So that's where it all.
That's where you pick all your goodies up. You bet. Small intestine. Now the duodenum itself is a segment of the small intestine closest to the stomach. That's pretty short, about 10 inches long. Okay, it's the mixing bowl that receives chyme from the stomach and digestive secretions from the pancreas and liver. Okay, pancreas, wow, a bucket load. A bucket load. And the presence of those tells us to secrete more. But the big one here is that most of the secretion of chemicals from the pancreas and the liver are due to fat. In the presence of fat and acid, you start secreting. Bless you. Okay? So, right off the bat, we've got to neutralize the acid. It can actually damage the duodenum. So we've got to neutralize it. Well, we secrete a bicarbonate from the pancreas, bile, which is alkaline, okay? It's alkaline. And then a neutralizing, okay, gastrin. You guys saw that, right? We have to stop the presence of that. So we actually start neutralizing the acid as it's being dumped, and then presence of acid and the presence of fat tells your stomach to stop dumping and your liver and pancreas to secrete. Just like that. It is a lot, but if you think about it, don't we have to go into the duodenum? I mean, we have to go into the duodenum. And it's such a short area, but you know, they call it the mixing bowl. You know what I call it? I call it a gigantic chemoreceptor. Because that's what it is. Once it senses HCl and lipids, it starts an entirely new process. In the presence of HCl and lipids, we start secreting bile and bicarbonates and lots of chemicals to neutralize that. The jejunum. Yeah, this thing is 8.2 feet long.
Oh my God.
So first we got 10 inches, and then we got 8.2. 2.5 meters. Yeah, just shy of 9 feet, pal. That's just crazy. 9 feet of happiness. 9 feet of intestine. Yeah. Intestine. 9 feet. Now, how many people have seen that where you're driving down the road and you see an animal that accidentally got her run over, and then you're still driving and all you see is this long, lanky animal intestine going down the road? Well, that's why. Okay? That's why. So, 2.5 meters long, 8 feet, okay, is the location of most chemical and nutrient absorption. Chemical digestion, nutrient absorption. Right? Now, the big thing with this, tomorrow when I ask you guys these questions, okay, what I'm going to be focusing on is where is the chemical secreted and what does that chemical do? Where is the chemical secreted and what does that chemical do? Now, I already said to use the image that we had online. You guys remember that image that how many people have printed it up? Does anybody have it here today? Someone? There it is. Boom. Fantastic. That's exactly what you need. That's awesomeness right there. Okay, because what we're looking at there is the different processes, the different chemicals, and what they do. This right here, you guys, is like it. This is it for this chapter. If you've got this down, general anatomy, where the chemicals are and what they do, you're solid. You're rocking the Casbah. Okay? Thank you. All right. So I would print that up and have it available to you, for you, tomorrow. I really would. Because I'm not really going to have any books out. You're not going to have any books out. I'm just going to openly start, meaning. What's this and this? Where's it at? Okay? Yeah, Lucy, this, and this. Where's it at? What does it do? Train. This, and where's it at? What does it do? Oh, I'm coming to add. Oh, yeah. You're like, okay. Yeah, so, be prepared tomorrow. Be prepared for this. The ilium is 11 and a half feet long. 11 and a half feet long. What? Okay, the final segment is about 11 and a half feet long, ends at the ileocecal valve. Ilium, cecum. They meet. Oh yeah, you got that packed all in there.
How wide are they?
They're small.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty small. Okay, a sphincter that controls flow of material from the ileum into the cecum of the large intestine. Now remember, where we're at is going to dictate its name. So swallowing, that's food. Once we enter the stomach, what do we become? Chyme. Yeah, acidic chyme. Now we can call it chyme or we can call it a bolus of food as it moves through the small intestines, but the second it goes through this valve,